Hello everyone, and in this video I'm going to be talking about my absolute favourite season of Digimon, and that is Digimon Universe Monsters, or more commonly known as Appmon. Appmon was released in 2016, and we covered it on the podcast as it was released during its run. But it wasn't actually until 2019 where it was released with English subtitles on CrunchyRoll, and that was very exciting, because that means that everyone can watch it. So October 1st was the anniversary of the first episode of Appmon airing, so I thought that it was about time to make another Appmon related video and explain just why I think everyone should watch Appmon and why it's my absolute favourite season of Digimon. So first of all, when I first heard the premise for Appmon, I wasn't that interested. It sounded a little bit gimmicky, it sounded a little bit like it was something that was different. And that is, Appmon is like if Digimon were all smartphone applications rather than their own sort of like animal that they were based on. So instead of maybe being based on like a dinosaur or a dog, they'll be based on apps. So Twitter and Line. So it was a little bit different, and it came off as a really weird concept of like, I thought, oh, this doesn't sound very good at all, but I'll watch it because it's Digimon. But then it turned out to actually do this really well with this new concept. It was something different. It was still Digimon, but it was different in the way that it was handling how Digimon are. It felt like it was more of an upgrade or renewing of the franchise for the modern era. So while Digimon, when it first came out, was in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it sort of based itself on that technology, Appmon brought itself more into the modern day, where Digimon were just smartphone applications. And it actually went up pretty well, actually. It's not just the concept that was executed pretty well, or fairly well, or very well, in terms of my own enjoyment. I thought it was actually done as well as they possibly could, considering about how negative I was on the series before it was released. The other thing I like is the fact that the characters are actually well written. And something I've noticed in a lot of Digimon series is that if a character cast is like 3 main characters, maybe 4, and maybe a few side characters, they're able to actually expand on the individual characters' personalities more than if it was a huge cast of 8 kids like in Adventure and in the reboot. So because we have a smaller cast, and it basically stays at around 3 or 4 most of the time, with the 3 main characters being Haru, Eri, and Astra, with the later addition of Rei, and another addition which is more of a spoiler, and I don't really want to spoil it too much just in case somebody hasn't seen the show before. So we have these main characters, and we don't really get any further additions. Like we don't get a full cast of 8 characters. They stay with the 3 main characters with a few additions later on. And because we have a small cast, we have more time to develop each of these characters and their personalities. Now, when I first started, I really didn't like the character Astra. When he was first introduced, I thought he was annoying, and I thought this is when my enjoyment of Appmon will die, because this character is just not likable in any way. But he's actually meant to not be likable. He's meant to be kind of like this. He's an 8-year-old with a YouTube account. He is very much as you would expect, and he's following the trends. And I guess if Appmon was released today, it would be a TikTok. He would be going along with the TikTok trends. And that would be extremely annoying. Like, he is very annoying as a character. But then you learn about his family and his own upbringing and his own character. And you actually start to like him, and you actually start to care about him as a person. You actually start to root for him, you cheer for him, you want him to do well in what, his whole character arc, which again, I don't want to spoil too much. And then we have Eri, who is kind of also annoying in her own way, but I got so involved in her story about being an idol that I was in tears in her last episode because I was so happy for her and how far she'd come as a character. And that was something that other seasons haven't really given me, like that emotional depth. And then, of course, we have Haru, the main character, and his friendship with his friend Yujin, who says that Eugen is the most precious thing to him and the one he loves the most in the world. Which is another level of depth, which is just fantastic, and definitely, if you want to watch it just for them as two people, it's very enjoyable. And then the animation, obviously it's still got a few animation flaws, like a lot of Digimon does, but the animation wasn't too bad, actually. Like, in Colon, I felt like I was criticizing the animation a lot, and in some places in Colon, honestly, it was fantastic, but in other places, it was not so good. Appmon, I feel like, was fairly standard in terms of animation. Like, I don't feel like it was, terribly done. It felt like what I would expect from anime in 2016. So that was exciting. I liked that. So there's a bunch of reasons why Appmon is something that should be attempted in terms of giving it a go. I know a lot of people are turned off because of that, the gimmicks and the whole premise, but it's definitely worth it just to look past any sort of negative feelings that they might have towards the premise, because they actually do the premise pretty well. It's sort of like a Young Hunters Yokai Watch thing that's going on, and it's just a really fun series. They, of course, it's not without flaws. It does have flaws. Like, it does sort of abandon certain app links very early on, but not as much as, like, any other series of Digimon has things where, like, they're really cool mechanics and really cool gimmicks, and then they just kind of abandon them. Like Card Slash in Tamers, I feel like was only really used for like the first chunk of episodes, and then they kind of just was more like, let's just make bigger attacks and just attack harder, like every other series of Digimon. So it's definitely a series that I would recommend giving a go to, especially because it's available on CrunchyRoll. It's not a super long series. It's just like, I think it's just like 50 episodes. It's not like a 67 episode ordeal like Colin was, but I definitely recommend watching it. Especially because it's the anniversary coming up, and especially because I say so, and I speak to a lot of people in the community, and they are just not interested in Appmon because they heard it wasn't very good from someone who watched 2 episodes and gave it up, or they saw the premise and were turned off by that, because the premise is a little bit unusual, but it's just such a great anime, and I got really into collecting the Appmon chips. Which, this isn't all of them, this is just a few of them, and I got really into collecting them, and that was really fun, and they work with the 3DS game, and when Appmon was running, they had like this online portal where you could log the QR codes at the back of the chips, and then you could combine them, and if you combined them and got enough points, you could win prizes. It was very cute, and yeah, I have a lot of the chips, and that could be its own video, honestly, because there are so many chips. But anyway, so I just thought I'd run through why I love Appmon so much, and if you're looking for a series of Digimon where it has a great amount of character stories, where you actually want and care about these characters from episode 1 to the end of the show, then Appmon's definitely for you. It does the characters so well, and it's great just to watch them for the characters, not just the plot. The plot is great too. I haven't even mentioned the plot. It's all about the characters. No, the plot is actually pretty good too. It sort of tells you who the bad guy is in episode 1, and then it continues to have that bad guy in the last episode, so it doesn't pull any fast ones like Original Adventure, which is like, oh, we have another bad guy, it's a Pokemon, surprise! It's just sort of like, this is the bad guy in episode 1, and then at the end of the show, that's still the bad guy. But it has sort of like a nice twist on that sort of, what is a bad guy, and it's got a nice sort of, the premise is done pretty well. So I just thought that I'd let everyone know that Appmon's great and everyone should watch it, and this was sort of my explanation for why every so often I will tweet, just, this is the tweet, watch Appmon. And now I've given sort of like a reason for why I think that people should watch Appmon. So have you watched Appmon? Have you not watched Appmon? If you haven't, did I convince you to watch it? Give it a go. Please give it a go and let me know in the comments. And I will see you on the next video. Bye!